militant group.
Don't take them seriously. They're the leaders of Gaza, Bassem. They were elected in 2006, and as your joke said, a 30-year...
2006, when nobody actually was alive by then. Like now, like people there, how many people were alive?
50% of Gaza was not alive in 2006.
So if you did an election right now, they're not going to be the rulers of Gaza.
Yeah, but you didn't do an election. That's the point.
All right. Alhamdulillah, we're all here. Everyone can hear. Amazing. Let me get this thing started here.
So how many people have died in Gaza?
30,000 people.
Okay, according to Hamas. Obviously, UN gets their number from Hamas. So but over the last...
How do I just know the most lovely place to start at? Fantastic start. Hamas numbers already. Maybe I shouldn't use that term. What? It's so like almost degrading when people say that. Oh, those are Hamas numbers. What does that mean? The numbers that the Gaza Health Ministry released were on par with the human rights organizations that later did an investigation. So I don't know why they're acting like these numbers haven't been consistent. I would argue they're more reliable than what Israel's claiming.
Do you have a number that you trust?
No, I don't have any number that I trust, but I'll take your word for it. I don't think that sounds...
So how many... how many people,
hundreds of thousands of Muslims have died in the Middle East.
How many people in Israel died in October 7th?
According to the numbers, 1,200. But
according to who?
But the numbers are still being counted.
According to whom?
According to the IDF.
Oh, but I don't trust the IDF.
Whether you do or you don't, those are the numbers that we're working with.
Well, I'm giving you 50,000 people died, and you said you don't trust them. So who do we trust?
That's not what I said. I said according to Hamas.
Yeah, but
so
like
whether I believe the numbers...
When you say according to Hamas, it's like it's the undertone that you don't believe the numbers.
With all due respect, you're missing my point. 30,000, other than the Hamas fighters, because I will stand to kill these people. I hope zero civilians die. But we know what happens.
But they die.
Of course.
Every day.
But let's go back to my...
So how do you think how many...
But what about the 100? Zero.
Should stop?
Zero.
But they're killing it.
Okay, but that's not my point, Bassem. My point is this.
How many
Can I ask the
lost
question?
their limbs?
Can I ask the question? And then you can have the full response. Why is this issue at the forefront?
There is a difference.
Well, if you ask the average American, they know what is exactly going on in Israel.
Here's the thing. These mental gymnastics where you want to divert people to other conflicts, these conflicts are proxy wars. These conflicts are civil war. Terrible, horrible civil war.
And a lot of the time, these things only happen because of Western intervention at some point. Like, I'm sure America's not in certain countries right now, but that doesn't mean they didn't invade once upon a time, and they didn't stir some kind of political disarray and disenfranchisement back then. And now that disenfranchisement has given rise to certain groups that wanted to take matters into their own hand, because the people who were put in power were only put in power because of the West, meaning the West put certain bodies in power in order to keep their own national interest. And then whenever these bodies did not basically fall in line with America's national interests, they bombed the living life out of them.
Civil war happening in all kinds of Asian and African country. The only difference is that that is a foreign country invading another country, like exactly Russia invaded Ukraine, and then everybody is sitting there. All they ask is ceasefire, because one of the people in that conflict is a country that has been financed, given money by the US. It is considered as part of the free world because they're secular, because they are democratic, and they are committing war crimes every single day under the eyes of the United States, of the UN and the Security Council. And that is why it is different.
Fair enough. So civil wars are totally okay. If it's a civil war, don't look at those are people just doing their thing.
Did I ever say that civil war is okay?
But you basically equivalized. If a civil war, 5 million people die across the Middle East.
Yeah, it is terrible.
It's no big deal.
Usually the civil war is really supported by like two proxy people, and they're like killing each other, and it's terrible, and they're trying to do it. And at the same time, those people are not just like killing them, they're killing them, wanted to push them out, openly saying that we are going to push Palestinians into the Sinai. Basically, that is my country. All right?
The only people shouting for the river to the sea are the Gazans.
That's such a horrible point. The only people chanting from the river to the sea are people in Gaza. Firstly, people all around the world are chanting that for the Palestinians. And it's because they are on the receiving end of this problem. For the last 75 years, they've been on the receiving end of this issue. Now, up until recently, I think a lot of the world would hear about groups like this and have like Piers Morgan's stance on it. But now it's completely different. And the reason is because people are now getting educated, Adam, on what's actually happening. Something you don't seem to be quite attuned to doing.
Between regular people in the street shouting from the river and the sea. These are regular people that are carrying flags in the street. You know what's happened on the other side? You have a government official like Bitzail, like the Minister of Finance. You have bin Ghafir, who is the Minister of National Security. Both of them, by the way, were arrested many times for acts of terrorism against their own country.
These are Israeli prime ministers?
These ministers.
Not the prime ministers, ministers of certain.
Yeah.
So do you mean to tell me that Yahya Sinwar, who's the head of Hamas, or Mahmoud Abbas, who's the head of the PLO, they're not politically saying from the river to the sea? So if we're going to use that equivalence...
You didn't even finish. Go
ahead.
So first of all, you are comparing a militant group, a terrorist group, with a secular democratic country. This secular democratic country that I'm telling you about, they have ministers coming up with a map of Greater Israel behind of them, and they openly talk about them, which is, by the way, if you don't know, the Greater Israel map is from the river to the Euphrates, including parts of Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria, and of course Palestine. So you want to kind of ignore this, and you go after random people in the streets with flags saying from the river to the sea. Don't you see that comparison is a little bit off?
But the point of a democracy, what do you mean?
Hamas, at the end of the day, they're a militant group. They're a militant group. They're ISIS. You don't take them seriously. Militant group.
Don't take them seriously. They're the leaders of Gaza, Bassem. They were elected in 2006, and as your joke said, a 30-year...
2006, when nobody actually was alive by then. Like now, like people there, how many people were alive?
50% of Gaza was not alive in 2006.
So if you did an election right now, they're not going to be the rulers of Gaza.
Yeah, but you didn't do an election. That's the point.
Why is that?
There was an election. What is he talking about?
Why is that?
Because basically they kicked out Fatah and the PLO, and they're running the West Bank.
And Israel didn't put them under blockade and kick the shit out of them.
There is an argument to be made there. You think that I'm saying that Israel is completely innocent?
This guy is so disingenuous because he's like, do you think I'm saying that Israel's completely innocent? But you're not condemning them. You're not telling us why they're not innocent. You're not specifying where they're guilty. You're just crying about the brown people. And you will not stop and tread on the waters of white crimes. And I would even say Jewish crimes. And it's funny because sometimes I'll say something and I'll get back to the video and then Bassem says kind of something I was saying, or if not, a better point. And then I'm just like, well, maybe I should have just let the video keep playing.
Listen, this is what you do. And when I say what you do is what America and Israel and all of this, like let's kill them all.
No. You've already put words in my mouth. You've called me racist. You're saying that I want to kill everybody. I've said none of those words.
You kill people and then you ask questions later. America, they kill first, they ask questions later. And the result, Afghanistan and Iraq.
Disasters.
They kill.
I'm not going to argue with on that one. Disaster.
Israel kill later, and then the result, what's happening in Gaza and what's been happening to Gaza. There's no justification for Israel to kill 30,000 people right now. And all the thing about October 7th, many of them, can you tell me where are the decapitated babies? What are their names? Can you get me the names?
You want me to go over every dead, decapitated Israeli baby's name?
I think that story was refuted, wasn't it?
It was refuted many times.
It wasn't real.
Vinny coming in clutch, man. I just noticed how silent Patrick and Vinny are. But at least he jumped in to say that. Like, I'm pretty sure it was refuted. It was damn refuted. And this guy, Adams, he's arguing in such bad faith. You want me to name every single baby whose head is no longer there? Just name one. Just name one. They can't even name one. It's because it's a fake story, as Vinny just said. It was refuted.
And it was the biggest story.
What's your point? That Hamas didn't kill babies? That didn't kill women?
I say if you have
There's hundreds of people kidnapped by Hamas. What's your point?
No. They're kidnapped, yes.
You're saying that 1,200 people weren't murdered?
If a terrorist group would decapitate people, if terrorist group would burn people, you know what terrorist groups does? They terrorize. They will show them off. Like ISIS, they were burning people in cages. Because a terrorist group, by design, terrorizes. They will go in with their GoPro, they will show you the babies that they decapitated. They will not gonna hide it. It's like, oh my, we didn't do it. Because terrorist groups does that, right? Remember ISIS, when they were burning people in cages? Yeah. They like to promote their terror because the terrorist group wanted to terrorize the public.
That's as unfortunate and detestable as it sounds, that's a true point. That's a good point. Every single T organization loves to take credit. They see it as taking credit for their atrocities. When atrocity takes place and then America says, oh, we suspect this organization, if it's a T organization, they would be like, yes, that was us. Even if it wasn't them, sometimes they'd be like, yeah, that was us. Just because they want people to be like, wow, they're powerful, they can do X, Y, Z, and maybe we should give them what they want. They really just want to control their own people, their own masses. Hamas has actually been on the record, their leaders have been on the record saying that they did not have any instructions, they did not give any instructions to their people to attack innocent civilians. Only combatants, only members of the military. Israel has a civilian army. Israel, it's really hard to be like, okay, these are the civilians and these are the militants, because Israel has a civilian army. Therefore, the vast majority of them have or are serving in the IDF. Now, I'm not saying that's okay to XYZ, whatever with them. I'm not. I'm just saying that when certain people are captured, like the 3 young women who are members of the Israeli army, when they were captured by Hamas and pictures were put out by them about them, the articles that were written said that civilians were captured, but they're actually military personnel on duty. They were soldiers on duty. They carried weapons and posted horrible videos of them dancing, which is, don't watch it if you want to stay sane and mentally coherent.
That's one of the most naive comments I've ever heard. We've seen videos, countless videos.
How dare
of them
you?
gang raping women and then blowing their head off while they chop off one of their breasts.
What on God's green earth is this man talking about? Where? What? Like, where do they get this from? I swear someone in some weird office somewhere in Israel was typing all these freaking lies out, saying we're gonna use this propaganda, and it's gonna, when they hear stuff happen to women, they're gonna lose their minds. When they hear the stuff about babies, they're gonna lose their mind. And then there's no evidence, because now the world all of a sudden is like, okay, we actually need evidence before we condemn anyone. And there's just no evidence at all. This guy saying there are videos of this happening. I'm not gonna play it again for our collective sanity. But he's saying there were, like, he's talking about it as if he watched it last night, and he was just like, these damn Arabs, man. It's appalling how easily they can lie.
We've seen these videos.
No, you haven't seen it.
Well, are you crazy? Of course we've seen these videos.
Seen it.
We've seen dead bodies littered all over kibbutzes.
You have read about it.
Okay.
And I can
go watch the videos.
And I can,
You're choosing, this is selective ignorance. This is selective ignorance. That's like me saying, if that's like me saying, of course Israel's not bombing indiscriminately. No, they have. And I'm at least willing to own that. And I'm not Israeli, I'm American.
By the way, I'm not defending Hamas. They did,
but you are equivalent.
But what I'm saying is all of these, like decapitating babies, that is wrong. That never happened.
Okay, it was only a few.
A few? How many?
Dude, I'm not there on the ground. So what's your argument?
We have pictures
let's be clear here. What's your argument? That they didn't decapitate one baby's head?
No.
So what are you saying?
I said that what Hamas did was terrible, but it was inflated by things to make it emotional, to think that it's okay to kill all of those people.
It was inflated. So it wasn't 1,200? Well, how much was it?
I don't know.
Not only are the numbers inflated, if you look at the list, there was a list online that Israel released of the names of people who died on that day. And there are some people who died in Egypt in that day, which means it wasn't by Hamas. They're doing what they usually do, which is they weaponize every point in their favor because they don't actually have any real evidence for their case. When you investigate the list, and some people have, they found that 1/3 of the people on the list were members of the IDF. And then another big portion of them were caught by stray bullets, both from the IDF and by Hamas. And then Haaretz, which is a news organization in Israel, did an investigation and released video footage of an Israeli Apache shooting indiscriminately at the ground where there were civilians. Those videos and the pictures that you saw of people charred up in their cars and the car exploding and all that stuff was done by the IDF. It was done by Israel. So it's really a moot point to say, X amount of people passed that way, because you don't know how many of them were deliberately targeted and how many actually were caught in the crossfire and how many were caught in the crossfire from the IDF. And that, I think, is the best way to go about it, because you really have to question them on everything they're saying.
Talking out of both sides of your mouth.
As a matter of fact, according to Israeli survivors, they said that many of these casualties happened because Israeli troops came in and indiscriminately killed everybody, including the hostages.
That's the first time I've heard that story. I've been
first time, because you were not covering, because you have not listening to the survivors from the Israelis.
Every morning I read credible sources, Wall Street Journal, Fox News, Bloomberg.
I can't take this guy seriously, man. Every day I read credible sources, Wall Street Journal, Fox News, CNN, CNBC, Piers Morgan.
Okay, so what are you reading? Hamas.com? Like, where are you getting your sources?
Haaretz.
Okay, Haaretz. Yeah, the Israeli newspaper.
The Time of Israel.
Yes, of course. I read those too.
They have actually brought
I've never heard them say one time that 1,200 people were not murdered.
I didn't
not in one paper.
No, I didn't say it.
Okay.
I said many of those numbers that were killed, they were killed because of the indiscriminating interference by the Israeli troops, and many of them died because of...
4 people were killed that way when they tried to rescue the hostages.
No,
the fact that you're trying to equivocate 1,200 people...
You're late in the game.
Basser,
You're late in the game. There was a woman that was named Dalia. She came out on an Israeli podcast and she said that everybody in the kibbutz were died, and then we went out and we said that the Israeli tank, the one that fired on the whole kibbutz.
This is bullshit stories.
Oh my
You think the
God.
IDF is just coming in and then just spraying down kibbutzes?
Yes. Yes. That is literally their motto. They have an entire directive called, I think it's called the Hannibal Directive, which literally means an offed person is better than a hostage. Like, I hope you know, Adam. Israel quite literally wanted to off as many people as possible that day because they knew if even one person was taken hostage, it would be heck for them. And if what we've seen in northern Gaza with the bombardment is Israel bombarding them when they have hostages in the proximity, then imagine what they would do if there weren't hostages. These are serious questions that you have to ask, especially if you're trying to normalize what Israel's doing. Just look up the Hannibal Directive. It has been confirmed that they reportedly, abolished it and moved on and whatever. That's clearly not the case. You can find artillery shells on the ground and on rooftops. You can find footage. You can even find an IDF soldier, a 17-year-old girl who's operating a tank. And she said that her commander told her to fire, even though there were civilians. And she says, oh, I didn't fire and all that stuff. But she got a command from her commander who knew there were civilians to fire. And then when she said they're civilians, he doubled down and said, I said fire.